Welcome to this conversation. I'm joined today by Mark Wodka, who's the chaplain and executive director at Canaveral Port Ministries in Florida. Welcome, Mark, to this conversation.
A privilege to be with you today.
So today we're talking about using new technology to bring worship and other pastoral resources to seafarers. This has become a big thing, certainly in the context of the pandemic, but it was already true before the pandemic for many ministries, though since the pandemic, lots of ministries have put new resources and learned new experiences in this space. So today, what I'd like to do is just learn from you, learn from your story. How did you get where you are in terms of putting pastoral resources online? And what have you learned? What can you share with others? So could you tell us a bit more about Canaveral Port Ministry? Also, what did you do previously? And then why was it so important to start pushing things out online?
Right. So prior to the pandemic, our main focus in our port was cruise ships that would come in, and we have a center where crew would be able to come and enjoy free Wi-Fi and being able to pick up packages. Churches would provide lunch for them. We would take them shopping, that kind of thing. And in addition to all meeting those physical needs, we also would provide chapel services. So we typically would have 1 to maybe 10 at the most people come in for a chapel service. And it was always a delight to be able to open God's word and maybe do some singing, that kind of thing. Well, after everything came to a grinding halt in March of 2020, we began to really seek the Lord. What do we do now? And one of the things that became very apparent was that we would take advantage of our social media presence and offer a daily Facebook Live chapel. We had a lot of discussion, should it be once a week, 3 times a week? And it just felt like at the time God was leading us to a daily chapel service. And it just happened that it was about a week before Easter of that year that we began. So we had a little bit of a steep learning curve to do. We chose OBS, Open Broadcasting Software, as our main engine for making it happen. It links with Facebook. It's a wonderful free product that is available. It allows you to add videos and just all different kinds of things. It's pretty simple to learn, but we found out at the beginning that if you don't have the microphone settings set properly, it can be all kinds of ugly. And so, so now that we've had an opportunity to learn those lessons, we've taken it up quite a bit. But the wonderful thing is that we've been able to include pastors as presenters. One of our former chaplains is now serving in Thailand, and he was doing twice a month. Now he's doing once a month. We have once a month at least, we'll hear from Ecki Breitenmoser in Germany will present for us. And then we have our staff chaplains that each has a day of the week. And so it allows us to invite new people to present. And I especially love it when pastors will take advantage of that and see the need for good teaching online. And so we after we were done with Easter, okay, what are we going to do now? Well, let's just continue right through the book of Acts. And then after Acts, I really had a sense that we should go back to the beginning. So we started out with Genesis and then started going, we made it through Esther, and then we kind of ran out of gas, so to speak. We had a changeover in personnel, and it just seemed like we needed something fresh. So we jumped to Matthew, and there's nothing like a gospel to breathe new life into a project like that. And I'll tell you, it has been something that most of our staff would say has given them additional purpose through this pandemic, but also the number of people, while it went up to maybe close to 1,000 people were watching at first because of the pandemic. And then as people got busier and busier, I would say now it's probably between 100 and 200 people who normally would watch a video. And so that's still a huge impact, considering that that in our chapel service, we might feel like, oh, wow, we had 10 people in chapel today. Can you believe it? And so what a wonderful thing to be able to bring God's word. We try to keep it to a half an hour total, just like as if people were in our chapel. We try to be very sensitive to the time factor, just because we know people don't have an unlimited time to watch. And also the purpose isn't to go into a Greek discord in all of the understanding of the New Testament, but to give bite-sized pieces, if you will, in the context of people maybe are watching where English is not their first language, and so then they can understand God's word better. And then the other thing that we have is the ability to bring music into it. So we had somebody on staff who's a very talented musician. My wife likes to sing. So then that gives more opportunity for people to join in and be a part of it on the worship side. So that's been neat. Some of it's a cappella, some of it's guitar. We've had a few seafarers that have recorded songs for us. And it's always a joy to have a good amount of variety. And some of it's very traditional, some of it's new, but just to have so many people participate, it's been a joy.
So over the months that you've been doing it, I'd like to break it down and sort of what you've learned in the various aspects of it. What have you learned sort of technically? You mentioned this about software, but also hardware. What are some of the key things? If you're giving advice to other people who are starting it, what would be some of the key advice just in terms of hardware and setting that up practically?
So one of the things that we ended up getting, which took our production up a notch, was a good microphone. And the microphone at the time was just huge improvement in the audio capabilities. And so my encouragement to everybody is to think about what kind of setting are you going to have, and that will reflect the kind of audio equipment that you need to get. It doesn't have to be expensive. I know for us, our first microphone was probably $75, and it's a boom microphone that unfortunately sits right in front of your face. Sometimes if you might want to hide behind it, but if you don't speak directly into it, then the sound isn't as clear. And so one of the things we invested in recently, which was it was $50 or $60, was a lapel microphone that connects through USB. And the nice thing about that lapel microphone is that it really picks up the sound well, and you could even move in the room and it doesn't change the quality. Where with the boom microphone, if you look down to read, it might sound great, but if you look up or turn to the side, all of a sudden everybody's kind of like, oh, your voice dropped out. And that's just an unfortunate reality. But with the lapel microphone, eventually, if we get to the point where we are offering chapels live, then the instructor doesn't have to be, or the speaker doesn't have to be glued in front of the camera. They can actually be away from the camera and present to the group that's there. And then it just seems more natural that way. But once again, having that consistent quality of voice is very important. And with Facebook, they do make closed captioning available. We thought at one time, oh, we have to pay for that. I don't know how it works, but now it's free. And it seems like it's pretty accurate as well. Where in the past, if you had your own video, you could go in and tweak the wording if it was off a little bit. I don't even know now how it works. I just know that they do seem to do a good job. I guess Google's caught up, or whoever's caught up with the ability to understand what people are saying better. So we bought a camera that basically rests on the front of the monitor, and it was a highly rated camera, but once again, I don't think it was probably between $100 and $200. That was a fairly early purchase that we made. I don't know what cameras cost, but it's a conferencing camera. We thought perhaps with the microphone that would work. The microphone wasn't good enough quality to pull it off. Then there have been times when we've used more than one presenter at a time. So it's very important to have multiple microphones for them. These are all things that you kind of need to consider, but I do believe that you could get 2 lapel microphones, maybe have a Bluetooth microphone that's handheld. There's all different kinds of solutions. You just have to consider what works best for your particular style of presenting. And for us, that's worked well until now. And now that we have the lapel mic, I think we can do the free range teaching, if you will.
So the second level then is the software, not so much the editing software, but more where you're streaming it in terms of where you choose to stream it. You've talked about doing Facebook Live. Why Facebook Live? Why not YouTube, or why not whatever other streaming services that are there? Why do you think Facebook Live was the right place for you to engage with the audience that you wanted to engage with?
Well, Facebook was our primary social media device, if you will. And so that was a natural way to engage people. We weren't engaging very many people with YouTube. And then if you start with another platform, then you're down to advertising on your website, maybe Instagram. And so given that we had so many connections through Facebook, that was natural for us. I think at this point, we are actually downloading all of our Facebook videos and then uploading them to YouTube just for the flexibility of organizing them on our website. And the only problem is that's a fairly onerous task of keeping up with that. And so, just keep in mind that maybe it's important, maybe it's not. We thought it would be nice to offer our videos in a searchable context, and Facebook does not provide for that. You can scroll and all that, but if you want to find a particular passage or a particular speaker, it's not really user-friendly. So ultimately, our plan is to have it all embedded on our website from YouTube, and then people can scroll and look it up by a passage, or if they happen to like a certain speaker, like our young chaplain that we had, who's now Navy Marine chaplain, he was always the popular one. So if people want to just watch him, that's okay, but that is something to consider. There is a way in OSB to send it to 2 platforms at once. And I wish we had started that a long time ago. It's something that would have made it easier so we wouldn't have to download and upload, but yeah.
So we've talked about the sort of the technical side of things and the platform that you're on, but I suppose most important is engaging with your audience. How do you know that you're engaging with seafarers, and what do you do with that engagement once you see that seafarers are liking the content or sharing the content, or more importantly, asking questions or engaging with you? What's the sort of follow-up with that?
And admittedly, that's probably our biggest weakness. We had talked at one time of having a follow-up like Zoom session, but then we realized we're doing good just to afford the 30 minutes in our day to provide the teaching. We often will ask people to connect with us through email, through chatting not in the video chat, but sending a message to our Facebook Messenger. And you know, so we are encouraging people to contact us and let us know if they have questions, if they need more information, if they have made a commitment, or if they have a prayer request. Those are all things that we want to do. We'd love to spend time praying with Cru if they reached out to us. And I think most of our chaplains are connected with different people who are watching on a regular basis and are hearing about those on an individual basis. But as far as, and then when we do hear about it through our main email address, then we do try to, of course, respond to them, but then pray as a group and see what we can do for them.
This is no doubt designed to bring pastoral care to seafarers, but how important has this been actually for your team? So not just for the people you're trying to serve, but also yourselves, your group. What have been the key points in that? How does this affect morale, or sort of affect your work together as a team?
Sure. So one of the things that we felt was lacking in the beginning, especially, was hope. And so that's why we call our program Waves of Hope, and trying to bring in the waves of, just trying to keep it all together. So our organization, our group, was committed to persevere through everything, that we weren't gonna take time off, that even without cruise ships there, that there would certainly be cargo ships coming into our port, and their needs would be at a higher level. And so what the Facebook chapels did is they gave us a rallying point to make sure that we were all in the Word, that as we were going through God's Word together, that we were learning things, and we were reminded that, you know what, there is that scarlet thread they talk about in the Old Testament, where it refers to Jesus throughout the whole Bible. And we were looking for that because he's our ultimate hope. And one of our most seasoned chaplains said, if it hadn't have been for Waves of Hope, he would have really struggled because of the fact that he needed purpose. And so it gave us that rallying cry together, and it helped us to have to sit down and decide, where are we going next, and what are we going to focus on? And having God's Word as the primary focus has been a huge stabilizing factor for our ministry.
I know at this time that you were serving with Port Ministries International, sort of have a national, international view of Port Ministry from that position. And I'm wondering, how important do you think this online chaplaincy and these online worship, how important do you think this should be for other chaplaincies, other port ministries? And how would you encourage them if they're perhaps not as engaged in this? Is this something that's just good for Canaveral, or should this be something that other port ministries should be doing as well in going forward?
So I really believe that everybody has some kind of circle of influence, if you will. And until we got on Facebook, we didn't know how great our circle of influence was. And since we've been involved with doing people's packages and all, we've been able to get some of their email addresses. We've reached out just with sending out a Cru newsletter as well, about once a quarter. Those are different ways of reaching out to people through the digital world. I don't know what each port ministry's digital influence is, but I would just encourage you to pray about what it is, what could be developed, what God may be calling you to develop right now, and focus on that. If it's something that you could provide, even just posting things on your Facebook or Instagram that, passages or stories, updates about your ministry. People really want to know. They want to have hope that, hey, the world's not over yet, and somebody cares about them. The fact that people can reach out to you is huge. We had one volunteer who would get on and do an introduction about once a week, and he was promising people everything. And I told him, I said, you can offer to pray, but we have helped people financially, but you can't promise that over the air, because I just don't know that that's realistic. I don't know what's realistic for anybody else, but I do believe that God has a purpose in all of this, and that through this, that there are opportunities we wouldn't have had otherwise. So just look at what your opportunities are and take that first step. I would have never guessed that we would be proficient with OBS software to do Facebook Live, but God got us where we needed to be, and it's worked out. There's still days when the video for the song is upside down, and that's very embarrassing, or the microphone's not working. It's Facebook Live. Okay, that's what you have to tell yourself. Do your best and just trust that the Lord is going to use it. There are so many free, excellent resources out there, like the Bible Project, that you don't have to come up with everything yourself. It allows you to put things out there without copyright infringement, but you need to look into that. Also, you need to be aware in America that you have to have a CCLI license for just doing streaming. And so learn what you need, and then do it in a way that'll honor the Lord. And I believe he'll bring about good fruit from it.
Mark Wodka, Chaplain, Executive Director at Canaveral Port Ministry, thank you so much for being on this conversation. It's really an encouragement to be together with you.
It's a privilege. Thank you for letting me join in today.